Hello everybody, my name is Benjamin Bloom. God, it's 9:20. What are we doing here? Well, Millwall have decided to announce their new manager. We all thought this was going to happen tomorrow, but they've gone for it tonight. Millwall have announced Gary Rowett as their new boss. News came out, I don't know, about an hour and a bit ago that Rowett would be the guy to replace Neil Harris, who went just before the international break. We've played one game since, so Adam Barrett was in charge for 2 games and really should have won both of them, shouldn't he? They were 2-0 up with 6 minutes to go. But hey, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Gary Rowett, who is, well, we always used to talk about the seasoned championship managers, as in, I don't know, Ian Holloway, Mick McCarthy, Steve Bruce, those type of people. Now, it's Gary Monk and Gary Rowett. They seem to be the new breed of seasoned guys. That's because Rowett has already had, 3 jobs in the Championship. So he came through at Burton. He was part of Burton's climb with, there was Hasselbank, wasn't there, and Nigel Clough a couple of times, and Rowett himself. Very well thought of there. Off he then goes to Birmingham City. He did well at Birmingham, but I think people got a little bit confused at Birmingham between him getting badly treated and him being a really good manager. Because obviously when Trillion Trophy took over Birmingham, they famously came in, got rid of Gary Rowett with, I think, Birmingham sort of 7th in the table. So, decent, but not incredible. Sturdy team, strong team shape, fairly pragmatic, as we'll come on to in this video when we talk about Rowett's style. They bring Gianfranco Zola in. Everyone feels sorry for Rowett. And then, of course, it's an almighty great failure as Birmingham nearly get relegated and they need to be bailed out on the last day. And a couple of seasons running. So Rowett's stock is high. He's the sympathetic figure. And he gets what has been a plum championship job off at Derby County. Mel Morris always, well, for certainly a lot of the last few years, it's changing a little bit now, always had Derby competing on as well as he could on a financial footing with the parachute teams. He spent a load of money and done some interesting things to try and keep that going. But when Rowett was there with this team with Vidra in the number 10 position as the star guy, and people like Nugent in there, Tom Ince, Curtis Davis was in there, Bradley Johnson, all of these experienced Derby players that have kind of been cleared out, moved on. That was the crux of Rowett's team, a very steady sort of championship team, and he has a good season with them. Again, pragmatic, again, solid, not necessarily gonna be rotating around in midfield, counter-attacking tons of men forward, but steady. Finish in the playoffs. I think they finished 6th, didn't they? Yes. And I was at these 2 playoff games against Fulham, and they actually win the first playoff game, don't they? Up at Pride Park, and then really sat back and let themselves play into Fulham's hands. So Rowett gets them in to the playoff semi-finals and loses. On the surface of it, it's a good job because he's got them finished 6th. But there was always a sense that there was a good squad there playing quite straightforward-ish football, and that they went down with a whimper in the playoffs, let's just say. Now it gets a bit interesting because at the end of that season, Stoke are in for Gary Rowett. Stoke have just been relegated from the Premier League, so they are a year 1 parachute team. Bit more money to spend. New project with Stoke coming down. The Bet365 guys in the background, bankrolling everything. And Gary Rowett, the Derby fans call him a snake. He said, no, I want to talk to them. And he walked from Derby into Stoke City. And I was always wondering how this climb up was happening. I understood Burton to Birmingham. Birmingham to Derby I never quite got, because I thought he was okay at Birmingham. He was just hard done by. There was no evidence that he was ready for a sort of top six championship team, but he gets the chance. And then that's the plum job, isn't it? A year one parachute team. If you're allowed to spend that money and they're not in too much of a disastrous state, then that's a great job. But it went horribly for Rowett at Stoke. Again, spending. He goes back for Tom Ince. A Phobie was a ton of money. Did he bring in McLean and Clucas and people like that? I haven't checked the actual list, but Stoke spend a ton of money. And I remember the first day of last season, they went off to Leeds and everyone's saying, look at this Stoke squad, they're going to walk it. But it didn't work, and he did not last long at all. I haven't checked, but around half a season, I don't know exactly when Rowett went. If you check back in my channel, I will have made a video about this when it did happen. But hey, we're talking Millwall today. So really, dismal failure there. I don't know what happened at Stoke. Some would argue that the culture there was not good and has kind of stitched up a couple of managers, and maybe we're only just now getting out of that. If you were a Gary Rowett apologist, that is what you would say, that there was more deeper problems than meets the eye there. But Rowett gets the Plum Championship job there, and it's a miserable failure. And out of work he goes. He makes himself lively. His agent's on the phone to Sky, and he's there at a lot of these Sky Championship games, doing the summarising, keeping his face out there. We know he's been waiting for a job, and away we go this season. The hirings and firings start, and I'm sure he would have been in touch about that Huddersfield job, because again, that is a year one parachute team, the same as Stoke. But they went for the Cowleys, and then we get this little spate here. International break number 2. Millwall is the first one to go, isn't it? Then Barnsley goes as well, and I'm forgetting stupidly Reading as well. So 3 all go at once. I'm sure Rowett was there sniffing about, and he has ended up in at Millwall. Now, my thoughts on Neil Harris I've already done in a video previously, so I won't talk too much about Harris, but we know club legend, took them up, really good first season. Bad second season because he set the bar so high. And I was thinking about this the other day when I saw that Tom Bradshaw has scored 3 goals in 3 games. And remember Harris spending that money on Tom Bradshaw last season and then him busting his knee and being out the whole time. I wonder if we'd be sat here talking about a different Millwall manager if Harris had Tom Bradshaw last season, because he might have been the key to changing things and shifting things up at Millwall. Anyway, I thought that was what happened at the start of the season when Smith and Budvarsson, Mollenby, Mahoney, all of these guys come in. Flash in the pan, sadly, for Millwall fans, 3 game, I think 7 points there at the start of the season. Off it tails, and I was there at Millwall Luton when Harris served his last game. The fans not behind him at the end of it and not wanting him to ruin his legacy as a club legend there. So, what we have here is a club, Millwall, that I've said before is a very unique club. There's no atmosphere like there is at Millwall. It's very, very passionate. It can be confrontational, which works in Millwall's favour in terms of frightening the opponent sometimes. It can be confrontational towards their own manager. Often I've heard them, they say what they want and they don't suffer rubbish, the Millwall fans, let's just say. But when they see a team going for it and showing disruptive disrespect to bigger opponents, because Millwall is not a huge club even in championship terms, that's what they want to see. And I think they'd stop seeing that from Neil Harris. Now, I was wondering what sort of manager are Millwall going to get, because you've gone from a team who played this up and at 'em, super pressing 4-4-2 with Big Morrison as the focal point there. Congratulations on his retirement as well. He's finished quickly the last couple of weeks, hasn't he? He's just announced his retirement. So it looked like there wanted to be some kind of transition away from that that Harris was working towards. Players like Ben Thompson had been promoted, who maybe doesn't fit that 17-18 style that Millwall had, and people like Mollenby coming in and flying wingers like Mahoney, obviously Wallace already there. Scallick is there and has not really been used either. So what there is the option to do this a slightly different way than Neil Harris did it, but there is still Bodvarsson and Smith there, and people like Jake Cooper, Hutchison Williams, Romeo, people who've been there a long while. So it'd be interesting to see what Rowett does. He's not going to be as up and at 'em as Neil Harris was. What I saw particularly from Rowett's derby was not pragmatic as in defensive, but quite similar to Koku's derby actually. Holding a shape, caution first, but attacking as a team, and not necessarily direct. When the chances were there to play the football, they did, which in contrast with Harris's 4-4-2, which was get after them, get up them, kill them on set plays, and disrupt, disturb and disrespect, as as Millwall have liked to over the years. So I think the football is going to be a little bit different. I still expect him to be a back four guy. Still, it's probably going to be a sort of 4-2-3-1. But looking at the team that was even there on Saturday at Brentford, when you've got Bradshaw, who's not a big guy up front, flanked by Thompson and Mollenby, and Jed Wallace, who's quick, and Shane Ferguson. I wonder whether he goes in and this is going to be a kind of stiff 4-2-3-1, but possibly we might get a chance to see people like Ben Thompson and Mollenby, like I've mentioned, maybe a bit more flair and a bit more creativity in those front positions. Do I think it's a good fit? I don't know. It depends how stiff Rowett goes with the tactics, because the Millwall fans are not going to tolerate, we're going to sit back and we're going to counterpunch and all of that type of thing. So he needs to understand the club, and he needs to understand that you do have to a certain extent, play on the front foot and go for it. If you're going to take that job, you kind of have to do that, because they're not going to tolerate otherwise there. So I'm going to sit on the fence. I don't really know how it's going to go. The appointment makes a lot of sense in that he's got championship experience. He's managed at higher levels than Millwall. You would say that, Derby finishing up in 6th and Stoke being a year one parachute team. So his knowledge of the league should be good. He should be able to tighten things up, make things stiff in terms of the team shape. Not that it was bad beforehand, but what I'm interested in is whether he sort of reverts away from Smith and Bodvarsson and this big guy up top, and goes more. I wouldn't be surprised to see a 4-2-3-1 in there. We will see. What I am very interested in is what Millwall fans, and I know we have a good number watch the channel, think of the appointment, how they think Rowett is going to play there. Are you happy, disappointed with their other names you wanted, or is this a fairly sort of logical one that it fits Rowett and it fits Millwall? They can both get something out of this. I'm interested to see how it plays out. Again, I'm on the fence. Could go really well, could go really badly. We'll see. What I do know is that in that scene down in that bottom 8 of the Championship, where Millwall may well find themselves in the long term, you've got teams like Stoke and Huddersfield mobilising. You've got Wigan, who seem to be able to get by on their home record. Reading may get a bounce. Borough look a little bit dodgy down there. You've got Hull with Bowen and Grzycki. You've got arguments for all these teams being able to claw their way out of it. So whatever Rowett does do, he's got to give us all a justification to say, Millwall will be okay and they'll be going up into mid-table. So Going to be an interesting one. Gary Rowett in at Millwall. Get me your thoughts in the comments, particularly if you are one of the many Millwall fans that's hit subscribe on here. As usual, quick plug, Twitter at Benjamin Bloom. Comment, thumbs up, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. Loads of championship stuff. We're in a free game week as well this week. You can also support me on Patreon. I do this for free at the moment and would love to do it more and at a high level. So I've set up a Patreon. It'll always be free on YouTube, but if you enjoy this and you want to support me there, patreon.com/Benjamin Bloom. More importantly though, have a think about how this is going to go. Rowett at Millwall. If you're a Millwall fan, if you're a Stoke fan, if you're a Derby fan, if you're a Birmingham fan, if you're a Burton fan, anyone, get in the comments and let me know what you think is going to happen to Gary Rowett, the new Millwall manager. Thank you for watching. Over and out.